Hey, and welcome to SNES Carts. Today I've got a few different ideas on how to display your Super Nintendo cartridges in your collection or game room. Let's take a look. So up first, I want to talk about the shelf itself. There's a lot of different ways that you can display your cartridges on the shelf. And the Super Nintendo cartridge is kind of an oddly shaped item. It's kind of like a sports car with all these bumps and oddities on there, and there's a lot of different theories as to why they made it that way. But the first idea is to put it on its side, and I think this is the most common way. You put the cartridge on its side and the labels will face out so you can read them, and you can find that game that you're looking for and easily pull it off the shelf. It looks really nice on the shelf, especially if you make your shelf almost the exact size of that cartridge. It looks really good and makes a lot of space for other cartridges on that shelf. The other way of displaying it on a shelf is horizontally, so you can lay them flat on top of each other and display them that way. They just don't happen to ever really fit perfectly that way for me on my shelves. My shelves are never exactly that size to be able to accommodate, 3 rows of that or 4 rows of that. And it becomes kind of a problem, but I do think it looks really good, and putting something next to it to kind of fill in that remaining space will work out really nice. It looks good on the shelf. This next display idea I found on Amazon.com, and it holds 9 cartridges. It's a 3D printed cartridge stand. It's all white. I believe they come in gray and black, and it's really well done. It's really nice. Just the bottom of your cartridge fits inside. It holds it very securely and not tight. It's not hurting the cartridge. It's just really nice, and they slide into your shelf really nicely, and it will allow you to really make up some space, especially if you have these normal depth shelves. You can just slide that bad boy back in there, and it will work really well. I found that they were really high quality, very nicely done, and I definitely recommend them. So the name I'm going to give for this next item is the Nintendo shelf. It's this black plastic shelf that they used to sell a while ago, and I guess it's kind of getting towards being a retro collectible at this point. But it was an extra item that you could get to put your Super Nintendo games into, and it's wall mountable. It holds quite a bunch of games, and it looks really nice. I was actually very impressed by this. I had to go and get this off of eBay, and I found that these were selling for from $3 to $30. I mean, different people have different ideas of what the actual value of this item is. But I found that it works really well, and I like that I can slide those games in there, and none of the games actually touch each other. None of the labels are touching each other. It's just a really handy way to display your games. It also works really well just sliding that into a shelf. If you put that into a shelf, you have this nice little box where you keep all your games really nicely amongst whatever else you've got on that shelf, and it works really well, especially for like a smaller collection. That would be a really good way to go. And even if you want to break up your collection and put different games in different spots, it's really nice. I've talked about this next item quite a few times, especially with Game Boy games. But a nail polish rack makes a fantastic rack for all sorts of different things. It works really well with Game Boy games, but I found that it works also very nicely with Super Nintendo games. And the one I have is not quite wide enough to hold 3 Super Nintendo games in a row, but I just put Game Boy games up the center and put them up the top, and it really makes it so you can see those labels. And I think that's kind of the problem I'm trying to solve all the time, is I want to see those labels, I want to see that artwork, and this really makes it available to me. And if you have some games that you're really proud of and you really like, then it might be a really good way to just display those and keep the rest of your collection on the shelf or wherever you have it. The next weird item I have is a Compac stand, and Compac is a part of Makeup, and it works really well for displaying Super Nintendo cartridges. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect solution, but you slide your Super Nintendo cartridges in there, and they fit perfectly in there. It's not too tight. It works really well. And there is a little space at the bottom where the Compac would have slid all the way into the bottom, and the cartridge is actually floating above that. So it's not locking in at the bottom, but it's tight enough on the sides that it is holding that cartridge in place, and you're able to see the entire cartridge and the entire label on that cartridge. So you could put your favorite game up front and it will look really nice. That'll also slide into big shelves and really clean up a collection. And lastly, I want to talk about displaying a cartridge all by itself. Now, simply put, you could take these cartridges, because they're flat on the bottom, and you could simply just stand it up in front of your games, and you could show off some of your good cartridges, your favorite, your rarest, or whatever cartridge up front of all your other games. But a really nice way to bring that up to the next level is through Rosecolored Gaming. Rosecolored Gaming makes these really nice acrylic game stands, and they're engraved at the bottom. It'll say Super Nintendo, and they just look really nice and professional. And I always recommend Rosecolored Gaming, so definitely check them out and what they do. Makes it really easy to put your game up front, and it just looks really nice. An alternative to Rosecolored Gaming in this scenario would be these other little stands that I found on eBay. Somebody recommended them to me, and I believe it's like 6 for $3 or something like that. And these little adjustable stands that move in and out, so you can adjust them to any size. These also work for a number of different things, but they're really inexpensive and they're very minimalist, so they're not these big things holding your cartridge. And they work great for this instance of displaying a single cartridge in front of things. You can get a bunch of them and display a whole bunch of your favorite games out front of your collection and really take pride in that. So that's just a few different ways on how to display Super Nintendo games in your game collection or game room. If you want to see more game collection display ideas, I have a whole bunch throughout my channel. I do it very often, and I'm always looking for new ideas on how to display games and cartridges and game systems in your collection, and the best way to do so, or even the least expensive way to do so. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. But otherwise, have a great day and collect what you love. There's a lot of different ways to display Super Nintendo cartridges on yourself. Display them on yourself. Don't put them on your shelf. That would be ridiculous. You put them on yourself. You can stack them on your chest and make a pyramid of Super Nintendo cartridges, and that will help you to become a Super Nintendo person. Every time you walk up to somebody, you could say, "Now you're playing with power."